loves it. Everybody wants to put as much as they can in their garden, and it seems like a good idea, but if you put too much in, it doesn't really work well. What are we talking about? Compost. And I'm going to show you an example. I was just out harvesting and I came across an example, and I want to show you so you can see with your own eyes. All right, so we're finishing up the summer growing season now. It's coming to a close, and as it is, this plant right here, which goes all the way over here, all the way down and around, and even onto the other trellis, is all planted in 1 square foot of this bed. And this is just regular topsoil, nothing else added. And we were doing our harvest, and we got, so this is what we got today, just a few pumpkins. Seminole pumpkin, and it's a pumpkin, but it tastes almost like a butternut squash, just better. Anyways, the count of the amount that we've harvested off of this plant so far, that brings us to 53 pumpkins off of this one plant. We're looking, if we've got about 3 more weeks, we've got about probably 10 more in us, roughly. So we should be around 60, 65, somewhere in there, pumpkins off of one plant, okay? Now, like I said, that was in nothing but topsoil, a little bit of compost, but nothing major. This plant, however, this is the same plant. Not the same one, but the same variety. It's a Seminole pumpkin. And it's been growing all summer, and it took over this whole bed. We had to cut it back. We rerouted it up and over the trellis here. So we've done a number of things to it, but nothing really hurt it. It's just constantly grown, and it's grown. And it was at one point going all the way back here, all the way here. You can see that this is not even connected to the parent plant anymore. See? It might be a little bit, but it's all smashed and messed up. But it's grown roots into the ground down here, still growing, and it looks good. This plant is planted, well, it planted itself. This is a volunteer. Straight out, here's the base of where it should be, the compost pile. So it's getting some topsoil, but it's really getting most of its nutrients from the compost pile. And the count that we've gotten off of this is 2. That's it. 2 pumpkins. And as a matter of fact, the second one right here. So we're not even definitely getting a, but I mean, we're gonna get a pumpkin from this. This is gonna ripen. But at the same time, we've gotten 2. This one, and then we had one all the way over here. So we had one growing in this flower bed here, and we don't have any more growing. So it's very interesting. Oh yeah, I forgot. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead, everybody. Hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. I am in coastal North Carolina, if you were wondering. Don't ask my zone, because it doesn't matter. But that being said, there's a couple reasons why it doesn't produce the same. And I've noticed a few things over the years in my garden with compost. Compost is great, don't get me wrong, but we need to be less liberal with it. This bed right here this is the one that the main Seminole pumpkin's growing out of. And so this soil here, you can see the texture of it. It's not very moist. We haven't had rain in quite a while, but you can see the texture of it. It's got a little bit of stuff decomposing in it, but otherwise it's just soil. If we wet it, it would definitely hold it. Now underneath it's definitely wet because we have the drip system. So the top inch or so doesn't really get that wet from the drip system. Well, the only place I have left to show you is the greenhouse. So let me take you inside the greenhouse, where we came in, and we've really added a lot of compost in here because we're just trying to work the soil, get it going and all that. But we want to look at the texture of the soil, okay? We come here, here's the texture, and you can see the texture of the soil. Look at that. Big difference. It's not crumbly. I mean, you can tell that it won't really hold water very well. Now that's just a byproduct of putting a lot of compost on top, which we did, and we did it on purpose because we have a plan. But we put a lot of compost on top, and then over time it breaks down, it goes in, but it has a byproduct per se, and it's that crumbly, tough to decompose mess. Now that's why I actually was just planting lettuce seeds in there, so I pulled back the mulch so I could show you guys, or so I could plant, and then I figured, well, I'll show them. And it's the mulch will go on top and it will help keep it moist, but it doesn't really retain water very well. And with it being crumbly like that, it also doesn't really support strong root systems. So we want to keep planting in there to do it, but we've got to amend it too. So all of these beds at this point, well, before a couple years ago, that bed over there and that bed back there and this bed right here all had that crumbly soil. And when I got a soil test, they were like, man, you got a lot of organic matter in there. You need to add some topsoil. So that's what I did. I went and added topsoil to the garden, and no compost, just pure topsoil. And I mounded it up probably about 2 inches over the top of the beds. And then I put mulch on top so that it wouldn't wash off, and let that just go all winter. Well, for me, it was like a month or so, but just let it sit there and just rain and moisture and everything. And then I came and I tilled it back in. And so we got it mixed up. And then I went and I just got like 2 bags each. I didn't get a load, I just got a couple bags. You can get topsoil really cheap. And I just spread the topsoil on top after that. And then that kind of gave it another layer of topsoil to kind of mix up that organic matter. I know what you're thinking. Organic matter, that's great. That's exactly what we want. But too much of a good thing is bad, you know? I mean, I always have heard, I heard somebody a while back say, if you're trying to lose weight and you eat nothing but carrots and you eat pounds of carrots every day, you can get fat, right? Too much of a good thing is bad. And it's the same here. So we want the nutrients, but I think, my personal opinion, this is not fact, but my personal opinion is a lot of people don't like to fertilize, and they don't want to put stuff in their garden, and they want to feed. Obviously we need to feed, so we rely on our compost to feed, when in fact it goes hand in hand. So you can put compost in, you put a little fertilizer in, especially if you're using organic. The organic will help activate the compost even more, break it down, feed the soil microbiology, bring it up, and then it'll break everything down more. But as we top off our beds, because like this bed right here, for instance, this bed needs to be topped off. You can see in this corner right here along the edges, we need about 2 inches of soil minimum. And that's just compaction over the year. As the rains come, it'll wash out. You know, my beds aren't perfect. Where the boards attach, there's a little slit. Now I don't see soil pouring out of them, but over time the soil will leave. So we need to top it off. And the school of thought, generally speaking, is I'm going to put a load of compost in and just fill it up with compost. Topsoil is really, really important. Like, I mean, just look around me. Not even worry about the garden. Look, all of that is growing out of topsoil on this planet. Look out your window. You see stuff growing all the time out of topsoil. And it's so important because it has the nutrients, it has the drainage, it has the the structure to retain water, to feed it, and then it's already got a natural composting system going on inside of it. Really trying to make this a composting video, but there's 2 forms of compost. There's hot and cold composting. Hot composting is when you turn it, speeds up the process. You can make compost in as little as 30 days if you're turning it by hand with a big pile. Cold composting, same pile size, probably take a couple of years, which is when you just don't turn it, you just keep adding and adding. It just takes a long time, and it slowly is releasing back into it. So go out into the forest, move all those dead leaves that stay there year round, and you'll find rich, rich soil underneath. And it's just naturally occurring. But when we're doing it in our gardens, it's totally different. we need to be cognizant of what we're putting in, and we're always trying to manage our soil, and our soil structure is a big part of it. What am I doing in my garden? So when I top off, I do a mixture of things. I generally rotate every other year. So the first year, what I do, like let's say I built this bed this year. Focus on this bed. The first year I came in and I put 50-50 mix in, which is 50% compost, 50% topsoil. Now the second year, what I'll do is I'll come in and I'll top this whole thing off with topsoil. And so each bed is due for a topsoil treatment this year. So over the winter, what I'll do is I'll come in, I'll get a load of topsoil, and I'm gonna top each and every single bed I have off with topsoil. But at the same time, I'm also adding those 4 beds over here. And what did I just tell you I put into new beds? 50-50 mix. So after I get the topsoil in the rest of my garden back here, and I put the topsoil on, I'm gonna bring my other 4 beds and I'm gonna fill them with 50-50 mix. And I'll get a little bit extra so I can put probably about a 1/2 inch on top. Maybe even less, just enough to just kind of keep it moving in that right direction. I typically wouldn't do that, but since I'm already going to get it, I'm gonna use it and add it. Now, like this bed, I never even really filled this bed up very much, so it needs to be topped off big time. And because we're putting so much topsoil in, we can also put in some compost to help. But I never, ever, ever will put a load of pure compost in my garden. Like when I say a load, I mean go get like a truckload of compost or something like that. Never ever will I do that. Got a compost bin back here which I need to redo very soon. This is one of my winter projects. As you can see, it's kind of starting to fall apart. Not kind of, it's definitely falling apart. But we've got a 2-bin system that we use, and what I end up doing is, this is my final bin. I got this beauty berry, I think is what it's called, that's sprouting up everywhere. I'm gonna have to fight it. But if I come in here, this is what I'll add to my garden. But again, I'm not putting layers on top of my garden. I'll be straight up with you. Making compost is a pain in the dairy air. I am not a fan of making compost. I do it because it's ingrained in me. But I've gotten to where what I'll do is I'll plant my plants, and then I'll put, I'll grab a wheelbarrow full, like in the spring, and I will start putting handfuls of compost around the base of the plants. But there's plenty of topsoil going in there, because you got to think too, once we mulch, we're already starting to compost within our garden. So we're adding that organic matter in there. And so it's really important to keep that in mind, that we're not really just adding the compost and then you're adding the mulch and then you end up with that crumbly soil. And I'll tell you this, soil in this greenhouse, even though it's crumbly, and what we will do is once everything starts to grow, we'll come in and, like for instance, the potatoes, which by the way, they started to grow. Isn't that fancy? So what we'll do is, because we have to mound these, we will go ahead and just put the topsoil directly on top of this straw. No questions asked. And then we'll put more straw on top of that. And that's kind of like a lasagna style. It'll start to break down slowly. And on this one, what we'll do, like these plants right here, we can mound up some topsoil. And then we have nothing but lettuce and bok choy right here. So as they clear out, we'll in between rows, we'll put some topsoil and stuff like that. And then once they're done, we will just add more topsoil in. So we will add it in here. And what I also need to do is, because over the years, I need to redo my border here so I can get more height, to get a little bit deeper. I'd like to get it just about even with the bottom. It looks like it is, but it's not. A little bit more higher, and then just have a little bit straighter of an edge, because it's all starting to spill over. Anyways, I'm gonna add the topsoil in here. People that make compost, like companies, will sell topsoil as well, and you can do that. Be aware that it will have some weed seed, but that's where the mulch comes in. That's where cultivating comes in. You take your hoe and you scratch it and it'll clear it out. So keep that in mind. And if you're really having problems with it, you can also use compost on top to kind of smother it a little bit. Just don't go real heavy, because like I said, We're looking to 60 to 65 squashes off one plant and 2 off of another.